Because too many players are injured. Yes, you heard that right. They had to cancel a game because they literally didn't have enough healthy players to keep it going. How does that even happen? This isn't high school basketball. This is supposed to be a professional league, and yet they're barely holding it together. That's the leave that Caitlyn Clark is supposed to drop everything and join. Clark is already set for life. She's got a Nike deal, a Gatorade deal, endorsement contracts left and right. She's making more money in one season than most WNBA players making years. She doesn't need unrivaled. Unrivaled needs her. That's the part Collier and the rest of them refuse to admit. They need Caitlyn Clark far more than she could ever need them. Without her, they're a struggling league with no mainstream attention, no real TV ratings, and no reason for fans to care. And they know that's why Clier is still out here talking about Clark like she's got a foot in the door. She's trying to plant the seed, hoping Clark will feel some kind of obligation to throw them a lifeline. But let's be honest, Clark isn't dumb. She sees what's happening. She sees Unrivaled struggling to attract fans. She sees their ratings flopping. She sees the injuries piling up. Why would she put her body on the line for a league that can't even fill its own rosters? Clark isn't chasing clout. She isn't in it for the gimmicks. She's in it to compete. And that's the biggest reason she'll never join Unrivaled, because Unrivaled isn't about competition. It's about survival. They're 0-6. 12, throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. One-on-one tournaments, weird scheduling, constant media pandering. They're trying anything to get people to care. Meanwhile, Clark just has to show up to a game, and the entire sports world explodes. Unrivaled is living in an alternate reality where they think Caitlyn Clark is just waiting for the right moment to join them. But in the real world, Clark is thriving without them. She's elevating the WNBA, driving record-breaking viewership, selling out every arena she steps into. She doesn't need Unrivaled to be a superstar. She already is one and Unrivaled. They're just trying to stay in the conversation. Collier and the Unrivaled execs can keep hoping. They can keep saying there's always a spot for Caitlyn Clark. They can keep throwing her name into interviews, pretending she's even remotely considering their leave. But Clark's silence speaks louder than anything they're saying, because the truth is she's moved on and Unrivaled. They're the ones still chasing a dream that'll never come true. Now let's dive deeper into the heart of Unrivaled failings, the ratings, the injuries, the lack of star power. This is all part of a bigger issue that goes beyond just Caitlyn Clark. It's a league built on a shaky foundation, one that can't seem to find its footing in a crowded market where there are far superior leagues to compete with. If they keep this up, they'll be doomed to become nothing more than a footnote in the history of women's sports. But instead of addressing these real issues, Unrivaled executives, led by Nefisa, continue to throw everything at the wall, hoping something will stick. They're focusing all their energy on trying to get Caitlyn Clark to join, but let's be clear, this isn't about Caitlyn Clark anymore. This is about a league's desperate scramble to maintain any semblance of relevance. Let's take a look at what's really going wrong here. When the overwhelming focus on Caitlyn Clark, Unrivaled has done little to hide its obsession with Caitlyn Clark. Yes, Clark is arguably the most talented player in women's basketball right now, but a league can't survive off one player. Even Michael Jordan, the greatest player to ever play the game, didn't single-handedly carry the entire NBA for its entire existence. While Clark is a superstar, no one player should be the sole focal point of a league. Yet here we are with Unrivaled hinging its entire future on whether or not Clark will decide to join. What's worse is that this obsession is coming off as pathetic. The constant stream of recruitment attempts, the talking points, the promises, they're getting harder and harder to ignore. When Nefisa Collier says things like Caitlyn will always have a spot in our league, it's clear what's happening. They're not just trying to build a competitive league, they're trying to make Clark feel like she's the missing piece in their puzzle. This is not how you run a professional sports league. Instead of trying to create a legitimate league, Unrivaled has turned into the Caitlyn Clark show, and it's starting to backfire. Even if Clark decided to join tomorrow, what would she really be? Napheesa Collier blames Angel Reese for Unrivaled viewership and asks Caitlyn Clark to join Unrivaled. At this point, the desperation is so obvious, it's almost painful to watch. Unrivaled is on life support, gasping for air, and yet instead of fixing the actual problems, they're back to doing the one thing they've been doing for months, begging Caitlyn Clark to save them. It's like watching someone flail around in deep water, refusing to grab the life raft, just hoping that somehow, miraculously, Caitlyn Clark will dive in and pull them to safety. And leading the charge, none other than Nefisa Clier, who's once again out here publicly 0:34, throwing out invitations, talking about how Clark could still join Unrivaled in the future, how there's always a spot for her, how all they can do is show her what they have and hope she wants, and you guys offer her a bag to come join you guys. Yeah, well, I feel like it's just so crazy, because the growth that Pin has brought to the game, the sheer amount of money that she's making these teams, people are having to move their venues for when she comes to play, and she's getting paid like $75,000 a year, so definitely we want to be a part of that change. And that's what we're doing. We're obviously, I think she deserves that. I think she should be one of the top players in the world. just for the sheer numbers that she's bringing us. So I think that's something that needs to change, and that's what we're trying to do. What exactly is she hoping for? Does she think Clark is sitting at home scrolling through unrivaled social media, seeing clips of empty bleachers and injured players limping off the 0-130 court, and thinking, yeah, this seems like a great opportunity for my career? Cause that's not happening. We mentioned Juju Caitlyn Clark. She isn't playing in this first season of the league, but she has said she's open to playing. What is it going to take to get Caitlyn Clark to play next season? I think everything we're doing, for Caitlyn, I feel like it's just been such a whirlwind, coming from college and all that came with that to, being in her first rookie season, it's just a lot to handle. And there's no break, especially for the rookies. They play for 18 months straight or something crazy like that, just because going from both seasons. And so I know she really needed that little mental break from basketball for a little bit, but all we can do is show her what we have. And I think Clark is in a completely different universe right now. She's the biggest thing in women's basketball, maybe even in all of sports at the moment. She doesn't need a gimmicky league built on desperation. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. She's already doing everything Unrivaled wishes it could do, except she's doing it in the WNBA, where the actual competition is. Meanwhile, Unrivaled is struggling. And that's putting it lightly. Their ratings are in the gutter. Their attendance is embarrassing. Their games barely crack 100,000 viewers, and even that's on a good day. And that's not because people don't care about women's basketball, because Caitlyn Clark's jersey retirement pulled in 1.1 million viewers. Not a game, not a playoff moment, just her existing in a stadium she didn't even have to play, and she outdrew Unrivaled entire season combined. So what does Unrivaled do? They doubled down on the Caitlyn Clark obsession, pretending that maybe, just maybe, if they talk about her enough, she'll eventually feel bad and throw them a bone. It's the same play they've been running for months. Remember when Unrivaled first launched, they tried to act like they didn't need Caitlyn and Clark. They acted like they were above chasing big names, that they were about empowering women's basketball without relying on a single superstar. Fast forward a few months and suddenly they can't go 5 minutes without bringing up Caitlyn Clark's name. Funny how that works. Napheesa, who is one of the league's co-founders, is out here doing interviews talking about how Clark is always welcome, how they hope she'll join one day, how there's room for her if she wants it. Does that sound like a league that's thriving? If you're at the top of your game, you don't need to beg people to join. You don't need to hope a superstar gives you the time of day. But Unrivaled is built on shaky ground, and they know what their entire business model is crumbling. They tried to sell themselves as an alternative to the WNBA, but that only works if people want an alternative. And guess what? Most people don't. The WNBA is growing. Caitlyn Clark is bringing in millions of viewers. She's selling out arenas. Fans care. Meanwhile, Unrivaled is out here canceling games, player development, but they also raise serious questions about the league's long-term sustainability. The latest incident of games being canceled due to injuries has to be a wake-up call for everyone involved. You can't just keep throwing random tournaments and gimmicks at the public and expect them to overlook these glaring issues. The reality is that Unrivaled is in a constant state of turmoil. Players are dropping out of tournaments, games are being postponed or canceled, and all the while the league is scrambling to make it seem like there's still a viable product. This issue is bigger than just the injuries themselves. The lack of a stable, healthy roster is indicative of deeper systemic problems within Unrivaled. From their training programs to their game preparation, it's clear they're not doing enough to ensure the long-term health of their athletes. And even if Caitlyn Clark wanted to join, would she really want to play in a league that can't even keep its players healthy? 3. The false promise of star power. Unrivaled biggest problem isn't that they don't have a superstar. They do. They have players like Nefisa, collier, of this solid talent, but the issue is that their stars aren't enough to create meaningful competition. They're trying to sell the league on the back of these stars, hoping that fans will flock to them. But without any real infrastructure, proper talent development, or competitive balance, these stars can only do so much. At some point, the talent has to speak for itself, and right now, Unrivaled talent pool just isn't impressive enough. That's why they're chasing Caitlyn Clark so desperately. They think if they can lure her and her star power will elevate the league. But the truth is, if the league is falling apart at its core, no amount of star power can save it. And as we've seen with Clark's complete lack of interest in joining Unrivaled, she's well aware of this. Clark has proven time and time again that she's about the game. She's about playing real basketball where she can be challenged and improve. She doesn't need to chase attention. She doesn't need a reality TEF style league built on clout and gimmicks. She's focused on her craft, and that's why she continues to shine. While Unrivaled drowns in mediocrity. 4. Unrivaled lack of real competition. One of the biggest misconceptions about Unrivaled is that it's different from the WNBA, but the truth is Unrivaled is not a legitimate alternative. It's a watered-down version of women's basketball that tries to appeal to a niche audience with flashy, uncompetitive games. The problem with this is that it doesn't build any real competition. or improve the level of play instead of fostering an environment where players can grow and develop. Unrivaled offers a product that's essentially a circus. Caitlyn Clark doesn't need this. She's already playing in the most competitive league for women's basketball, the WNBA, where she's already considered one of the top players. Why would she leave that to join a league that's still figuring out how to schedule its games or keep players healthy? It makes no sense. The marketing disaster. What makes all of this worse is how Unrivaled is handling its marketing. Instead of focusing on building a strong foundation with quality basketball and competitive games, they're chasing clout and relying on flashy stunts like recruiting Caitlyn Clark. They're trying to sell a product based on name recognition instead of the quality of the sport itself. This is where they fail badly. Caitlyn Clark doesn't need flashy marketing or viral moments. She lets her game speak for itself, and her fans respect that. Meanwhile, Unrivaled continues to put all their eggs in 10-13-56 basket, hoping Clark will join and save them. But that's just not how it works. 6. Why Caitlyn Clark won't join Unrivaled. It's time to be honest. Caitlyn Clark is never going to join Unrivaled. Not now, not ever. Why would she? She's already the face of women's basketball. She's got more endorsements than most players in the NBA. She's got fans in every corner of the globe. She's breaking records, and she's still just getting started. Caitlyn Clark doesn't need Unrivaled to build her legacy. She's doing just fine without them. And while Unrivaled continues to chase her, they'll only continue to fall further behind, out of touch with reality. So what's next for Unrivaled? They're still trying to get Clark to join, still hoping for a miracle. But in the meantime, they'll have to face the hard truth. Without Clark, without real competition, and without a solid infrastructure, they'll never be a serious contender in the world of women's basketball. And that's the harsh reality of the situation. Unrivaled is a league built on desperation and clout chasing, and no amount of empty promises or gimmicks can change that. Caitlyn Clark is moving forward. Unrivaled, meanwhile, is stuck in the past.